We're gonna switch over to the presentation, and I know we have a whole mix of teachers in the room for this session. So what we've done is we've gathered a collection of tools. Some of them you've seen just a little, so we're gonna play with them more so you feel confident using them. And so we'll talk about them, and then I've basically designed activities and games so you can play. Because I think the best way for us to learn and get better at using these tools is just to play with them. And then you can figure out which ones you like, which ones you don't. But please hear me when I say, I don't expect you to use all of these tools. I am going to show you some tools, and if you like one, fantastic. You have the whole summer to play with it, figure out how would I use this with students. And then for me, if you have one that you're excited about, that is a success. But we're going to try a bunch of them. So when we're going over the tools, if you guys, like I said yesterday, can de-screen and just kind of give me your attention, that will make it so we have more time to actually play with them. Okay, so we're going to start with the first, these are the tools we're going to go over. And I know at the end, if we have time, Tiffany was going to jump into some other online content that would be worth exploring, and I think we might end up having time for that. But we're going to go kind of in this order. So the first tool we're going to talk about is very simple and very flexible. It's called Today's Meet, and I actually set up a Today's Meet for you guys for my presentation yesterday, but because the Wi-Fi was not so great, I didn't spend much time on it. But a Today's Meet is basically a space online where people can have a conversation. So my idea yesterday was I will create a Today's Meet Backchannel. Backchannel is like a space where you guys can talk in the background. And that place you could ask questions, you could share resources, you could make comments, ask me for resources while I was presenting. But because of the Wi-Fi, you didn't really get a chance to play around with that. I know that in the rotation, the lab, they used the Today's Meet, so you've had maybe one other exposure. So today, I'm not just going to show you Today's Meet, but I want to pair it with a teaching strategy that I use that I really, really like and have found super effective. So we'll jump right in. Oh, look at that. So this is what it looks like, just in case you didn't remember the name. So this is what Today's Meet will look like when we get to it. Now, a fun strategy for using Today's Meet is when you're crowdsourcing. Has anybody ever heard the word crowdsourcing? No? Okay. So if you guys can, no matter what problems you're having on your computer, if you could just kind of give me your attention while I explain the teaching strategy, then we'll jump into your computer. Okay. So one alternative or one option, if you find that you spend a lot of time lecturing or talking to students and giving them notes, an interesting strategy to replace some of that is a strategy called crowdsourcing. And I'm going to walk you through an example, and then we're going to do one together. So the idea with crowdsourcing is that instead of a single source of information, the teacher, talking and giving notes or information, you have the crowd generate the information. And so in my classroom, I was actually, the very first time I did this, I was teaching a Shakespeare unit, and I wanted to go over Shakespearean sonnets. And I spent a lot of time in college on Shakespeare, but I decided instead of lecturing, I was going to put students in small groups. I was going to give them one Shakespearean sonnet and ask them to read it and then tell me, what conclusions can you draw about this particular type of poetry from just reading it? And as students were talking and figuring out, okay, this is what we think, I started passing out whiteboard markers. And I said, as you have things to share, write it on the board. And so students worked in these groups, and then they kind of slowly started going to the board and writing information about what their group had decided they were learning. But after about 5 minutes, the traffic to the board slowed down. So I said, screens up, and screens up is their indication that they can use their cell phones or their devices. I said, screens up, fill in the blanks. And then all of a sudden, this is what happened in my room. Students were walking up with their phones, they're writing information about Shakespeare sonnets, and my board is very, very big. They literally filled it from top to bottom with information. And it was funny because I was standing in the back of the room, and my idea had been that at the end, I was going to come in and tell them something about Shakespeare's sonnets that they didn't write on the board, just to prove that I actually know something about this topic. And as I'm standing there watching them fill my board with information, I was running out of things that I could tell them that wasn't on my board. And at the very end, I thought, well, at least I can tell them that sonnets means little song in Italian. Nope, that made it on my board too. And that experience for me was so powerful because there was so much energy and so much excitement because they were generating the information. Now, we use this strategy all the time in my class, and my students will often use today's meet as a way to share the information that they're finding if they're researching, or if they're watching student presentations, I will have a Today's Meet back channel, and they will take notes and put their notes on the back channel instead of taking notes on paper. And then after the presentations, they'll go back through the back channel and grab the most important points and information. Because I'm not sure if you've ever had students take notes and then you look at what they actually write and you think, why would you write these things down? These aren't the main points. This is a nice way to crowdsource all that information so the main points tend to be repeated and students can easily pull that information out. So today's meet is just a nice tool for them to share information in small kind of bite-sized pieces because they can only write 140 characters. You can't just write and keep going forever and post it. It will actually cut you off. So I want to try a crowdsourcing activity with you guys today. And we're going to actually do this with art or a museum. Now, I had heard from Tiffany that there were some art teachers who had said, how can I use this with art? So I have a link up there, bit.ly/natural history. And that link is going to take you to a page in the Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History where there's all of these different galleries that you can check out. And as you're doing it, I'm going to ask that you share what you're finding that you think is interesting on the back channel. So not only will you get to explore a virtual museum tour, but you'll also be sharing what you're liking, what you're observing, what you're noticing on the back channel. Are there any questions about this before we dive in? Yes, you want 2 tabs open, 1 tab. Ooh, there's a hole in the stage. You want 1 tab open for the Natural History Museum, and then 1 tab open, which is your Today's Meet back channel. So as you're going through the virtual tour, you can be kind of sharing your ideas, your comments, your thoughts, your favorite pieces on the back channel. And Tiffany and Cassandra and myself will walk around the room and help you guys out. And I'm going to give you 10 minutes to go on your virtual tour and brainstorm on the back channel. Okay, I will be right back. I'm coming back. I'm totally coming back. I just wanted to pop in. So that was 10 minutes, but I see people who are just kind of getting into their rhythm. So we're going to do another 10 minutes. Don't forget to go to the back channel, the Today's Meet site, and share. What are you liking? What's interesting at the museum? What's your favorite exhibit? How could you use this with students? Do you think they would enjoy it? Just brainstorm on the back channel.
Did everybody have a chance to put something in the Today's Meet back channel? Okay, so let's go ahead and do that right now. Just if you enter one thing, one comment, a way that you might be able to use this within the classroom. And this is what it looks like when all of those comments are populated into the Today's Meet space. So as a teacher, how might this help you? How might this help you in interacting with your class? How might something like this help? What does it tell you?
I think everybody will have the chance to express what they feel, what they learn. And many kids, like she was telling the other day, that won't speak up in classroom will write it. And they will share, and that will make a difference for everybody.
Any other ways that this kind of information might be helpful to you as a teacher?
You can see your students' interests, and maybe you can decide on a project, an individual project for each of them.
So it's a perfect way to personalize the learning if you're going to go into a unit of study. Also, maybe to form groups, because sometimes when you tell students, we're going to work in groups, what happens? I'm going to work with this person. You know, so this, if you're doing this up front, you get a lot of interest, and then you can group by common interests. So right now, you can see Catlin is populating this comment feed with additional virtual tours. So she put one up for the National Gallery of Art and the Louvre. So you can find a lot of virtual tours that match your content area. So that's one type of digital curriculum that you can bring to your students that's more experiential and exploratory. That could be a starting point for learning.
Okay, so I just want to share a couple quick ideas for using today's Meet, and we'll keep this today's Meet back channel open for the rest of this session. So feel free, if you have questions about anything that we're going to talk about from now on, just put them in this back channel if you don't get a chance to ask in person, or if you want more resources, just throw that request in the back channel. But I did want you guys to see that, you know, the Louvre in Paris is an incredible museum, and students can take a virtual tour of that as well. But other things they can do, like I said, collective note-taking. If you're showing a little clip from a documentary, students can be taking notes together on a back channel. Informal discussions. Now, you know, obviously they only have 140 characters. It's very much like social media, Twitter, and so it's an interesting challenge for students to have discussions that are meaningful in a small amount of characters. I find that very valuable as an exercise as a teacher, because I know when I'm on Twitter as an English teacher, it's very hard for me to say what I want to say in a small amount of characters. So that's an interesting challenge for kids. Also, predictions. So if you're reading, or if you want them to form a hypothesis in science, having them have a space to do that. Even sometimes when we're getting ready for a formal piece of writing, we'll use the today's Meet, and students will share their drafts of a thesis statement or a claim, just so they can see each other's and get immediate feedback. And then obviously the crowdsourcing activity, which is kind of what you guys did. You're taking information from the Gallery of Art and you're putting it into the back channel to share it with the whole group. So just some ideas for how you can use this kind of a tool with students, but it's very simple, but it's very flexible. Now, one thing, this is a teacher tip. When you create today's Meet back channel, you know how you all put your name? It said nickname, and you put your names in? Well, you're teachers, so of course you put your actual name in there. It's very important that you tell your students you want their first name, last initial, no nicknames. You don't want them putting something in there that is not appropriate, right? So you need to have that conversation first, because you don't want to get all excited about today's Meet, and then you start one, and then one kid says something, and you realize, oh, they can write whatever they want in that box, okay? And you can't delete their comments once they're in the stream. You just have to deal with them if something pops up that is maybe not productive, we'll say, okay? All right, the next tool, and for everybody who saw me in the flipped classroom session, you got a little sneak peek of this tool, but I told you we would be using it again, is Socrative. And I think was it Cassandra? You guys did, Kahoot. Kahoot is very similar. So you might choose that one or this one, but similar tools, slight differences. I use Socrative, but I know lots of teachers who use Kahoot as well. And Socrative it's got this almost the same interface or experience on a computer, on an iPad, on a phone, and I use it for all kinds of things. You can use it for quizzing, giving them a quick quiz. They have a already created exit ticket for the end of a class to kind of see how did students do, what do they think they learned, what are they struggling with. You can use it to do what are called space races, which are like fun competitions, which students absolutely love. At the very beginning of the year, I use Socrative and I have them do a couple like game icebreakers in the classroom, which is fun because then they get over being shy and anxious and they just enjoy it. So I wanted to go through just kind of the basics of what it offers, and then I want to play a game because I think that will be the more fun way to interact with it. So here's how it works. This is just kind of an overview of the functionality. So what it can do, you can preload a quiz, so type quiz questions on your computer. You can have multiple choice, true or false, short answer, or a combination of those. And anything that so if you have a multiple choice question and you mark which one is the correct answer, it will automatically grade it for you. If you have a one-word short answer and you put in that word, it will automatically even grade those for you. You can do what's called a quick question. So let's say you get into class and you didn't have time to make a quiz before, and you want to put a problem on the board and have students do like a warm-up problem where they solve it. You can actually write the question on the board, have A, B, C, D with answers on the board, and then kids on their devices can just do like a quick poll and choose one of A, B, or C, or D, and you didn't have to actually create the quiz ahead of time. It's kind of like a polling feature, so you can kind of see where kids are at. The space race is basically where you're running a quiz as a game. And when you play it, each group is assigned like a color. And originally it was like a rocket ship that would move across the screen. And now you have all these choices. So the last time I did it with students, every group was a different color unicorn that was like hopping across the screen as they were answering questions. And then obviously you have the exit ticket, which is already pre-made, super easy to use. You'll start in an account, and students don't need to create an account. They just need your room number, which you'll get a big long number, and you can personalize it. So my room number is like my first initial, my last name. And so students can get the student app on their device and go right into your room, which makes it very quick and easy. I just kind of brainstormed some ideas for you for using Socrative, things that I have done with my own kids. So starting with a warm-up, like question or challenge, checking for understanding, brainstorming, getting them to brainstorm, playing review games and icebreakers. I have done what you guys just did with vocabulary, with review. I've done it with, just fun questions at the start of the year. Run a quiz. I actually do use Socrative for my reading quizzes for students, and then exit tickets are great as well. So just some ideas for how you can use this tool. And the next one we're going to talk about is Padlet, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on Padlet because I know we worked with it yesterday was it yesterday? What's today? Yes, yesterday, at the beginning of the day. It feels like so long ago. And I showed you the examples of using Padlet with math, using Padlet with English for writing, some examples of kids kind of brainstorming textual evidence on a Padlet wall. Oh, that's so great, thank you. Is this, oh yeah, it is mine. So no, this isn't mine. It looks like this if you see it, but that is not mine. So this is an example that I just wanted to show you because I told you yesterday that the Padlet wall, you can choose from their backgrounds or you can upload your own background. And so I was... Gracias. I left it on the podium. in my defense, I totally looked there and clearly overlooked it. So this one is for the Industrial Revolution. And what I asked up there, it said, what do you know about the Industrial Revolution? Can you identify any inventions from the Industrial Revolution? So this is a board. I uploaded this picture of a train because it seemed like it made sense with the Industrial Revolution, and it could be a space to access previous knowledge. So just an example. And then this is one that I didn't show yesterday, and I had my students on Google Books, and they were looking through Life magazines that are online for free, and I asked them to look in the 1930s because that's when the book we were reading was taking place. We were reading To Kill a Mockingbird, and so each group had a different version of Time magazine from 1935, and they had to make inferences about what they were reading and the time period, and then share them on the Padlet wall. And so some kids took pictures because, like I told you yesterday, you can upload pictures to the Padlet wall, they can type in the Padlet wall, and so they could kind of see what everybody else in the room was observing from the articles to the advertisements in Life magazine. And Life magazine is great because it's very visual for students. And so I wanted to give you guys a chance to play on a Padlet. I know some of you, because of the Wi-Fi yesterday, some of you got to play with it and add your ideas from the culture building activity. But I have another one set up so that you guys can tap on it. If you want to try with your phones or your device to take a picture and upload it, or take a screenshot of something and upload it, this would be the perfect opportunity just to play. And the question on it just says, how could you use a virtual Post-it note board with students? So feel free to add your ideas, post pictures, just have fun with it. Because if you have a good experience with it, you're more likely to use it with students. So we'll give you about 5 minutes. We'll circulate and answer questions. And I will put this link in the back channel. So I'm going to put it in the Today's Meet so you don't have to try to copy it from where you are.
So that means that you can look on the channel for Today's Meet, and you'll see that the link will show up there, and you can just click on it. So if you click on the tab that you have open already with the Today's Meet, you should be able to find it there. Which is also a great way, while you're teaching, to share additional sites with your students so that they don't have to write down the URL.
This was so fun. So fun. Okay, look at what you guys just created. Can you imagine maybe the beginning of the school year, a way for students to introduce themselves, take a picture, their name, a little something about them, and then they can all get to know each other so much quicker and get the face-to-name recognition at the start of the year. Is anybody in here teach science? So fun to document lab work and what's happening in a science-like experiment with a Padlet wall. You really just got to think outside the box about what you could do with something that works. And now that you've been through the process and we figured out how you take a picture, where the picture goes, how to find it and upload it, now you're all ready, which is great. So we're going to transition to another tool, and I'm going to hand this to Tiffany while I get my computer ready.
Since you love the photos so much, and so will your students, we're going to go into another application that visually conveys a more thorough story than just one snapshot or one collage. So in this application, essentially, you create a slideshow with just pictures. And you can be really creative about the way that plays, tell a narrative, tell the story of a lab discovery, tell a personal anecdote. So there are a lot of different uses of it. And then you can select the style, the music, etc.
Somebody was doing video, I think, but it may be like a, yeah. You can make a video. Okay, so I use Animoto all the time, and here is a great strategy for back to school. You guys have back to school night, yeah? With parents, they come. Okay, so I'm gonna show you something to wow your parents. Yes, you're gonna wow them, exactly. Okay, so every back to school night, I make an Animoto video. And all I do in the first 2-3 weeks of school is I take pictures of my kids in class while they're working, doing different things, so parents can see them on their computer, them having discussions, working in a lab, doing all kinds of stuff, artwork. And then I have an Animoto account. The Animoto account for the free version is only 30 seconds, but teachers get a free account so you can make longer videos. And I'm just gonna show you my video I created for back to school this year, and then we'll let you guys play and you can just experiment with it, just so you can see what it looks like. And it really takes about 5 minutes. It took me about 5 minutes, and parents all night were like coming up, shaking my hand. This was amazing. I love seeing my student. They had no idea how easy it was. And you don't have to tell them.
Pero podemos conseguir un relevo, sí. Mira, para eso van a querer.
So I chose the music. I just put the pictures in the right order. That theme was already there. Okay, so that was literally my back to school video that I put together in 5 minutes that all my parents love. But I've had students put together videos they'll perform a scene from Romeo and Juliet or Othello, and they'll do it in Tableau, and they'll take pictures and show like the whole scene in Tableau. I've had students in science, they document, because you can actually use video clips in there too. They will basically document a whole science experiment from beginning to end. I've had kids do reflections on the year and basically show kind of their progress through the year, almost like a virtual digital portfolio. And so Tiffany had a really spectacular idea that I'm going to let her share with you. It's a challenge for you guys.
A challenge for you to create, and you can do this in groups or individually, so there's personalization for you, to create an Animoto that tells the story of how you felt throughout this blended learning journey, okay? So wait, this is part one of the blended part, because sometimes when you're asking students to use technology, first you need to model it without technology. So, is anybody an actress or an actor? Or you just prefer to be dramatic and on the stage? You don't have to have any training. It's not required. I promise. Come on. One person. I'm not going to make you say anything. I promise. One person. Help me out. Come on. All you have to do... Okay. Very good. The face that expresses how you felt when you all learn that you were gonna go on this blended learning. You first heard it. So maybe that's the first picture, something like that, right? Exactly. And then the story goes on, right? So somehow from start to finish, the range of emotions, some of the highlights of the learning experiences captured from your perspective, and put it into an Animoto, have fun with it, play with it, and then maybe we'll share a couple of them later in the week on Friday. Okay? Short.
Yeah, they're 30 seconds for the free version, and I can help anybody who wants sign up for the education version that's longer. Right?
And that means you get to take more pictures. So we're going to go to Animoto. Animoto.com. Start snapping away pictures. Feel free to use that. That was excellent acting, by the way. Can we let's have a round of applause. That's excellent. Okay, so if you go to under pricing, Animoto.com, under pricing, and then if you go to the bottom where it says Animoto 4, there's a link that says education. So it's a little tricky to find. Obviously, they don't want people to find it because it's free. So now you're here, and there's a link right here. Right here where it says, are you a teacher? Apply for use in your classroom. That's where you want to click to get to this apply now. So you're going to pricing, and then at the bottom of the page, Animoto for education, and then you'll see a link that says apply for your classroom. So this is starting pricing, education at the bottom. Are you a teacher? Yes, click here. And then you apply. There you go.
I just have to say, I love watching what you're doing. You're excited, you're having fun with it, and that's exactly what this should be. So thank you for getting involved, and keep doing what you're doing.